And they've been screaming about this on Fox News. Basically, what they do is they'll take the single worst examples from the protests and they'll pretend like the entire protest. So they'll say, like, everybody was out there protesting for Hamas. No, they're not. That's a fucking lie. Most of the graffiti said free Gaza and free Palestine. Most people had a fucking Palestinian flag. They weren't walking around waving the Hamas flag. They find the single worst instances and they blow it up. And then they make the entire conversation not about the war criminal genocidal maniac who just gave a speech in our country, right? But about the protesters who are against the genocide. So when I see this statement lets me down because don't give in to the fake outrage. She doesn't have to say anything. Nobody was linking you with, you know, the people who are out there protesting. Right. But she feels the need, it's this democratic instinct to be like, I gotta like find a way to agree with the right and just condemn the protesters. We shouldn't be talking about the protesters almost at all. It should all be like, why didn't we fucking arrest Netanyahu who has an ICC arrest warrant? What's your take on that?
Okay, so before we hear from Cenk, I just want to show you a few things very, very interesting here. If you take a look at this one, you will see what Fox News has reported on the incident of Netanyahu coming to D.C. and the protest and all those things, the fun stuff that took place. So Netanyahu to meet Donald Trump. So this is what Fox News reported. Netanyahu Harris own say if she is pushing Hamas to agree to a ceasefire. And then the other news coming all from Fox News. Anti-Israel agitators invade Capitol Hill building on eve of Netanyahu address. So again, no mentioning of what Netanyahu said, all the lies, all the porkies that came out of his mouth. Nothing was reported on the mainstream media. Now this is for Fox News. Let's take a look at the other bullshit news, which is CNN. And take a look, I'm sorry for cursing. Take a look at this one. CNN is now reporting they're too busy with what happened in Israel. Oh, we need to save Israel. Oh, this is a deadly strike on Golan Heights, raises fears of major escalation. I mean, see the where the attention is when we have reports coming actually a few hours ago that says that Israel, they struck a hospital in Gaza, killing 30 people, and I think they injured hundreds of them. And that happened only a few hours ago. Is there any report on that? Absolutely not. What they're reporting, all the bollocks, all the bollocks. And this is what they're addressing here, both Cenk and the Secular Talk, Kyle. Let's take a listen a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm a realist here. And you know how much I care about this issue. Every day I wake up thinking, how do we save more Palestinian civilians? How do we get action quickly enough for America to turn around? It's Benjamin Netanyahu, who's one of the most evil men of my lifetime, talks about how, Hamas killed 2 babies. That's terrible. And he gave a moving example of that. Left out, he murdered 15,000 Palestinian children. So he's drenched in blood. Seeing those standing ovations for him made me want to vomit. Every one of those people who went to that speech and applauded him are pathetic and completely and utterly bought by AIPAC. So now, in terms of the statement from Kamala Harris, she has to put out that statement. I hate that she has to put out that statement, but I know why she did it. Number one, Kyle, it's not because of the political issues. That's the secondary issue. The primary issue is donors. If she doesn't put out that statement, the donors are going to go, well, I don't know about her. Is she pro-Hamas? Right? Because you have to understand, the propaganda is not something that's like cooked up by evil people in a back room somewhere. The donors genuinely believe what they say most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. So for them, they really believe, oh my God, the class of donors that care about this issue, oh my God, anti-Semitism is about to overrun the country and we're 1 inch away from the Nazis winning, etc. So if she doesn't condemn those statements, they're going to think that, okay, she's with Hamas. And for us, we can't relate to that because that's so nuts, right? But they do genuinely believe that. They're from the old school. Remember, a lot of these donors are like 70, 80, 90 years old. So they think like Israel is on the precipice of losing, and they're a tiny little David against the mighty Goliath Palestinians. I mean, they're totally detached from reality. So that's part of it. The second thing is, as much as this propaganda does work on the media, it's so frustrating but you have to be able to definitely get past it. So my co-host on the Young Turks, as you guys know, is Anna Kasparian, and she was on News Nation last night with Chris Cuomo. She's debating Alan Dershowitz. And as she's making great points, and Dershowitz is being the lunatic he normally is, they have on a loop the one guy spray painting Hamas and the one guy burning the American flag. So nobody's listening to anything that anybody's saying, because all they're seeing is a burning flag and the Hamas on a statue in Washington, D.C., because it takes up 2/3 of the screen. So mainstream media is going to do that propaganda endlessly until they try to convince Americans that every peace protester isn't trying to protect those poor Palestinian kids, but is a bloodthirsty terrorist who's good trying to kill all the Jews in this country, right? So that's the propaganda we have to deal with. That's the playing field that she's in. So she puts out statements like that because she's almost forced to. So as much as I disagree with it and it bothers me to my core, I understand the politics of it.
So I'll just give you my response, then I'll give you the last word, and we can wrap it up on that. But look, my take on that is we have to stop coddling bad faith attacks. And that's what I think this is. I think these are bad faith attacks. So Netanyahu in that speech tried to say he killed, quote, practically no civilians.
Yeah.
That's a lie. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody in mainstream media is talking about that. He lied about Americans being funded by Iran, anti-war protesters being funded by Iran. That's a lie. Nobody in mainstream media is talking about that. He tried to prod us to go to war with Iran by saying Iran tried to assassinate Donald Trump. That's what he's doing. He's trying to prod us to go to war in the same way he tried to prod us to get into the Iraq war. Again, this is disgusting, and nobody in mainstream media is talking about this.
Okay, so I just want to pause here for 1 second here, guys. Netanyahu is prodding Americans to go to war with Iran. Now, recently, this was recorded, this podcast, this conversation of Cenk and Kyle was recorded before the attack on Golan Heights took place. So when Kyle said that Netanyahu, he is giving U.S. reasons to go to war against Iran, now he has another reason. Now he has another excuse to drag U.S. into a war with Hezbollah and also with Iran. And this has been pointed out by many experts, and we have seen clear evidences that suggest that the Golan Heights attack that took place a few hours ago was not carried out by Hezbollah. That was not carried out by Hezbollah. Hezbollah themselves, they denied it. They said, no, we did not do it. What we found evidences from people, from the locals, is that this was actually the Iron Dome rocket that they have fired against those missiles coming from Hezbollah and ending up landing those rockets from the Iron Dome in that football field, and therefore caused casualties, and 9 or 10 or 11 kids, they died of that attack. In other words, it was done by Israel. Regardless of what it is, the Western media narrative now is vociferously claiming that this was an attack by Hezbollah, an attack on Israel. Therefore, we must condemn this kind of attacks trying to distract us from real issues, which is Netanyahu's lies and the genocide taking place in Gaza. Guys, we have to be very, very careful about what we hear from the mainstream media, because they are very, very misleading and very, very biased. I mean, dangerously biased. Let's take a listen a little bit more. I'm not sure if...
Hurry up and give us more weapons. What's wrong with you guys? Like, speed it up a little bit. You got to give us more money and more weapons. Again, nobody in mainstream media is talking about this. So that needs to be the conversation, and I think everything else is a deflection. If modern-day Adolf Hitler goes and gives a speech, I don't care that people were in the streets saying, I'm against modern-day Adolf Hitler. I agree with 99% of those people. Maybe there's the tiniest fringe that I might have disagreements with, but I need to make clear that I'm on their side. Now, finally, the biggest part of the conversation today is the flag-burning thing now. People are debating the flag-burning thing. And, Cenk, this drives me crazy because this is a settled issue. We had Supreme Court cases over this. In fact, Crystal and I were just talking about it. I gave the exact Supreme Court case that it was. And even Justice Antonin Scalia, the ultra-conservative, said, look, you might not like it, but that's freedom of speech. And so now all the concern about where the right used to scream, free speech, free speech, free speech, that's out the window. And I'll go even a step further, which is to say, if there was ever a time to burn an American flag as a symbolic act that we disagree and we're not with this, it's when we're in the middle of arming and funding a genocide that has killed thousands and thousands of women and children. So I guess my frustration comes from the fact that all the media has to do is be like, squirrel, and then every single Democrat in the country goes and talks about the squirrel when there's, you know, a beheaded child on this side and nobody's talking about the beheaded child.
I mean, Kyle said some very, very powerful words. This is the time, if there is any time, I mean, I'm not suggesting you should be burning American flag or any flag for that matter, but if there is a time to show a symbolic resistance of this whole Holocaust, the Holocaust or the genocide taking place, is now. This is the time when people should show and they deserve to show their frustration because of what the senators, the Congress people doing in the U.S. politics, helping Israel, getting those weapons, getting those aid to continue this genocide. These are very, very powerful words.
Kyle, you're dreaming about the same thing I'm dreaming about, a strong populist Democrat. And that person, when they arise, will take this country by storm, and they will win in epic landslides. Not just because they're right on all the policies and the American people agree with them, but because they will have strength and be able to make these arguments that you're making and I'm making, Crystal's making, with fervor, with enthusiasm. And that works in politics. People want strength, right? But that is not any of the Democrats we have now. And so again, I love hope. We try to create hope for a living, but I don't believe in false hope. There's no chance that Kamala Harris is that strong. She's not anywhere within planets of that strong. But I don't want people to mistake